Hey guys, well, our path to a potential finals run becomes that bit more impossible as our girls once again find themselves on the losing side of a game. This time, the Brisbane Lions quite easily defeated us by 29 points. To be honest, this loss, as I said, pretty expected based on our experience compared to theirs. However, this doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily write this loss off as inevitable because there's definitely stuff here to be scrutinised. As quite frankly, both our defence and midfield were quite woeful at large points in this game. After a really impressive start to the first quarter, in which we got it sort of in our side, our 50, and locked it down, we eventually found ourselves at the end of the first quarter just constantly stuck in this death loop of basically hack kicking it out of our defensive 50 only for a Brisbane Lions player to intercept it and then immediately kick it back inside 50, to which a Brisbane player easily marked the ball. Like our defenders seemed to be just not there. And then obviously we were only just lucky enough that they just kept missing all these pretty easy set shots on goals and allowed us to stay, relatively in the game until well into the second quarter when they finally started getting a run of goals and broke away and inevitably, just kept bringing the margin out wider and wider and wider. I will admit though, it was quite funny that even though they were getting all these easy set shots, a lot of their goals actually came off from some of the more chaotic entries inside 50, sort of the ones that didn't come in super cleanly. So take of that what you will. But it wasn't just what was happening inside their 50, it was also a lot of midfield. The Lions were frequently just breaking out of packs, easily moving to intercept kicks from us. And even when the ball was in space, it just felt like there was more of a drive from the Lions players to just run and get the ball before us. There was so many times the ball was in space, and lo and behold, there was a Lions player running to grab it, and none of our players were remotely in sight. But yeah, like I'm just really just maybe I'm a bit emotional about this, but I'm just really annoyed with our defense at the moment. Like, just letting you know, currently this year we have conceded 473 points, over 100 more points than we did last year. And remind you, last year was an 11 game season, and we're only in round 9 here. So, yeah, our defense has been horrific this year. I'll probably do a bigger deep dive at the end of a big year review about just how bad it's got. But currently, the only team that has conceded more points than us at the moment is Gold Coast. So that should show you just how bad our defense has been this year. And I want to potentially put one player in the spotlight, and that is Emily Borg. And I know I have a friend who's a big fan of hers, and like I think she's a lovely person, but she was a total non-factor in this game. She had 6 fantasy points in comparison to Piper Window, who had 7. And Window was taken off with a concussion in the first quarter. So, like, I know AFL fantasy points aren't the be-all end-all, but that is bad. I'm sorry. But can we also just speak about Window? Like, man, has she just had a season from hell? Like, obviously, she did her ankle in the first game against the Dockers and then was out for several weeks. Gets back in for the St Kilda game. That would have been fun to be in. And then, obviously, she misses the Bulldogs game with an ankle. And then this game, she gets a shoulder to the face and is going to obviously have to miss the Hawks clash next week. It's just like, she's had an absolute horrific season. And, like, my heart goes out for her. That is rough. And we thought Jacqueline Coaches had it bad in the men's season. Jeez, quick recovery. Hopefully, you have a quick recovery window, and hopefully, this is the last of these horrific things happening to you because she's been an amazing player when she has played. It's just unfortunate that fate seems to really hate her at the moment. So. But anyway, like I'm acting really down at the moment, and to be honest, Laura Arnett was actually quite positive with the girls, and I know a lot of other people on social media are definitely quite positive with girls. So, look, I'll try to be more positive. I know I'm pretty down on this, but let's look at some positives. Obviously, Schultz and Woodland were actually the two best players on ground if we go by AFL Fantasy, and it's kind of easy to see why. Obviously, Woodland had, I think 25 disposals, which is way higher than Dowrick normally gets, and she apparently had 11 inside 50 generations, which is apparently the highest in the comp this year, and I think she also set a club record, so amazing game by Woodland, who definitely, I think she had a bit of a slow start this year, but she's definitely been pretty good in this latter half of the year. And also, when it does happen that the ball goes inside 50 and it's looking likely we're going to score, we actually are probably pretty high up there in being a team that, when it looks like we are scoring, we do score. Like, this has been crazy. I think I've been a lot of times where the ball's sort of gone inside our opposition's 50. They've had a pretty clear shot for a goal, and then they just bam it into the behind post, or they, kick it out in the full. Whereas we seem to be pretty good at when we do get the ball inside 50 in an advantageous position, there's usually a goal that comes from that. So I will say that's one positive. Also, we had a few of those players being like Tahal, who got another goal. Like, I was hoping she'd have a multi-goal game, but at least getting the one goal keeps her in the running for that potential club first leading goal kicker award. Meanwhile, Houghton obviously had two. Definitely, I think Houghton was definitely feeling a lot better today than she has been in some previous games. She's definitely had a bit of a lull in the last few games, so it's good to see her on the ball today. And finally, Young obviously got another goal, which was nice. So if she can become a one goal a game player, that's boding really well for her when she comes back next year with a full preseason training under her belt. But regardless, obviously, we still have 3 more games to play and a very, very slim chance of making finals. But obviously, there's a big game next week. It's our first Friday night game against none other than the Hawthorn Hawks. Obviously, a pretty high stakes game based on how the semi final between us went last year. Obviously, Hawthorn. For those who don't know, like, Hawthorn is my least favourite team in the comp. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that they joined the comp at the same time we did. And meanwhile, while we were wallowing at the bottom of the ladder, they're just, somehow beating every team that comes their way, and just, like, effortlessly. And it's like, it just really annoys me how, like, good they are. And I just wish we could just really, so I really hope we out of all the teams that we're playing these last few weeks, I am really hoping we can win this game. But obviously, it's looking pretty difficult because Hawthorn, while their kicking has definitely been a lot worse this year for goals, their defence has been insanely good. Like, they are just a rock-solid wall back there. So it's kind of funny that we got a team in Port who can't seem to defend and a team in Hawthorn who can't seem to kick goals. So it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. I think one of the teams is going to buckle here. It's either we're going to suddenly find out how to defend ourselves and actually, keep Hawthorn to a low score, or Hawthorn's finally got to learn to kick bigs. But fingers crossed, if we can get, a potential elusive sort of 6-7 goal game, we might potentially pull off Hawthorn and finally clip their wings and knock them out of the top 2, as obviously Melbourne's lost this 2 spot to the Hawks to this weekend. But regardless, until then, let's go Power!